The campus during the summer is empty and the hot air is filled with an indescribable sense of pressure. Lin Hao rolled his old bookcase and walked through the playground with his head down. There were a few harsh laughs coming from behind, as if he was following him on purpose. He felt tight and his feet were faster, and his brain was just thinking about finding a place to hide. "Yi, Lin Hao, are you running so fast? Are you afraid we will eat you?" A loud voice came from behind, carrying a few mockery. Lin Hao didn't have to look back and knew that it was Zhang Outyin, who was carrying his little follower, who came to find fault again. "Brother Zhang, this kid is just a silly man. Judging from his behavior, he probably wants to hide and cry again." Another voice followed, smiling with a slight smile. Lin Hao bit his teeth tightly, and he didn't say a word, and his feet were down faster. He knew that people like Zhang Outyin would have no good results. This guy is not only a tyrant in the campus, but also the boss of the music club. He usually walks around the school because of his background at home. In his eyes, an ordinary student like Lin Hao is a horn that can be killed with just one hand. The old teaching building on the side of the playground caught my eye. There were no people going to that place, and there was also a bit of ghostly revelation. Lin Hao couldn't take that much, so he turned around and dripped into the building. Zhang Outyan's smile behind him turned far away, and he shouldn't have caught up with him. He gasped, pushed open a half-covered door with his hand and slipped in. As soon as the door was closed, the surrounding area calmed down instantly, leaving only his own rapid breathing sound. Lin Hao then raised his head and looked around. The place looked like a deserted music room. There were some old musical instruments piled up in the corners of the wall. The piano piece was covered with dust and there was a musty smell in the air. He wiped his sweat at all his hands, and his heart relaxed. It should be okay to hide from this. He muttered in a small voice, and casually found a corner to sit down, intending to wait for Zhang Outyan and the others to leave before going out. At this moment, his eyes fell on an old wooden box next to the piano. The box looks a little old, with some incomprehensible patterns on the surface, half open, and a corner of yellow paper is exposed. Lin Hao was curious and went over and opened the box. It was indeed an old song. The paper was a bit broken, the notes on it were dense, and the handwritten characters were a bit sloppy. "What's this? Who threw the music here?" Lin Hao slapped. Although he couldn't understand the music, he still picked it up and flipped it. Just as my fingers touched Liju, a strange feeling suddenly surged into my heart, as if a warm current flowed straight from my fingertips to my brain, and the whole person was shocked. "What's the matter?" Lin Hao was so scared that he almost threw the slut, but the next second, a pile of strange things suddenly appeared in his brain: notes, melodies, and fingering, as if they were directly engraved into his brain. He was stunned for a moment, looked down at his hand, always feeling a little unfavorable. The piano next to him suddenly attracted his attention. Lin Hao walked over by a tragic trick, lifted his neck, his fingers fell on the black and white keys, and the melody in his brain began to flow out uncontrollably. He had never learned a piano, but his fingers seemed to be led by something, and he pressed a note lightly and easily. Ding! The first note rose up, crisp and leisurely, as if it had broken the silence of the music room in an instant. Then, a simple and powerful melody flowed out from his fingertips, like a thunder before the summer rainstorm, low and shocking. Lin Hao was stunned by his own eyes. He lowered his head and looked at his hands, feeling unbelievable. "Damn, is this my blowing? When will I play the piano?" At this moment, the door of the music room suddenly squeaked and opened. Lin Hao was startled, his fingers shook and the melody came to an abrupt end. He suddenly turned his head and found a girl standing at the door, staring at him with a cold look. "Who is playing there?" The girl's voice was cold, with some doubts. She wore a simple white t-shirt and denim pants, and her long hair was tied into a horsetail. Although she was dressed in an ordinary manner, her temperament was indescribable. Lin Hao realized it at a glance. This is Su Xiao from the music club. He is usually very cold and basically doesn't talk to ordinary students. I just pressed it twice, nothing else." Lin Hao hurriedly held his hands, feeling a little panicked. He doesn't want to be misled and becomes a sensible thing. Su Xiaobing his eyebrows, walked in for a few steps, his eyes swept over the piano, and then fell on the music in his hand. You used that melody to me just now? Lin Hao pointed his head in awkwardly, and his heart was pounding, afraid that the other party would continue to ask. Who knew that Su was silent for a while, and there was a shock in his language. Have you learned the piano before? No, I'm just pressing it blindly. Lin Hao replied with a stern head. He couldn't say that he was just inexplicably flickering. Su Xiao didn't believe it. She sneered and said with a little chorus in her language, then you pop it again, I'll listen to that part just now. Lin Hao's heart skipped a beat. After this, he didn't know how he burst out. What should he do if he showed his vagina? But looking at Su Xiao's eyes that were not emotional, he couldn't refuse, so he had to sit back in front of the piano with his head and put his fingers on it. Okay, just try it. He muttered in a low voice, closed his eyes, and tried to recall the feeling he had just felt. What's amazing is that when I just closed my eyes, the melody appeared clearly again, and my fingers seemed to be guided by something, and I carefully pressed the piano key. This time, he was more fluent than he had just done, and there was an indescribable emotion in the melody, as if the emotions that had suppressed for many years burst out at this moment. The low notes were like punching the heart, and the second half turned light and fast again, as if they were through the hope after the haze. The song ended. Lin Hao was a little stunned. He looked down at his hands, and there was only one thought in his brain, damn, I am so awesome. Su Xiao was stunned at all. There was a flash of ripple in her eyes for the first time, and she couldn't believe it. Are you pressing blindly? Lin Hao slapped his head and pretended to be stupid and stunned. The energy is good, it's no big deal if you press it at will. Su Xiao's mouth twitched, obviously not believing in his ghost. She took a deep breath and her language became serious. Did you write this melody yourself? Or copied? I wrote it. I suddenly appeared in my brain. Lin Hao answered realistically, feeling sorry for him. Why could he suddenly write a song? Su stared at him for a long time, and finally opened his mouth. What's your name? Lin Hao, from class 2, grade 3. He replied in a low voice, and was a little unhappy and was followed by such goddess-level characters. Lin Hao. Su Xiao reiterated it in a low voice, as if he had recorded the name, and then asked again, are you interested in joining the music club? With your level, you can participate in this year's campus music festival. When Lin Hao heard this, the first reaction in his brain was to refuse. In that place of the music club, Zhang Outyin is the boss. Isn't it fun to go there? Besides, he was not interested in music, and this pure accident happened just now. No, I have no research on music, I just play around. He slammed his hand and tried to break the topic. Su Xiao refused to say, who is your level of mind? Lin Hao, I don't care whether you are really uninterested or low-key, you shouldn't be buried in this kind of talent. If you consider it again, the music community will welcome you at any time. After saying this, she didn't say anything more, and turned around and left, leaving Lin Hao standing there in a confused face. What's the matter? This is... Lin Hao looked at her back and formed a group of people in his brain. He lowered his head and glanced at the music in his hand. He always thought that this thing was a bit evil, but he couldn't say where he came from. However, the feeling of playing the piano is really cool. Especially when Lin Hao saw Su Xiao's astonishing expression, he felt a sense of pride in his heart. He suddenly thought, isn't that guy Zhang Outyin always joke that he is a waste? How cool would it feel if I could press him on the music? Zhang Outyin, wait, one day I will let you know who is the real waste. Lin Hao clenched his fists, and a desire to fight ignited in his heart. He decided that no matter what the music came from, he wanted to try the music. If you can form a team and play a big splash on the campus music festival, it will not only hit Zhang Outyin's face, but also make everyone who looks down on him shut up. Thinking of this, Lin Hao carefully stuffed Li Ju into his bookcase and prepared to go back and discuss with his own fat man. Although this guy is not reliable, he is very generous and may help him to bring in a few people. When he walked out of the old music room, Xiang's rest was just in the campus, and Lin Hao's mood also lit up. What he didn't know was that the decision at this moment would completely change his dull high school life, and even make him the focus of the whole school and even the whole country. And just after he left, a blurry shadow flashed past the window of the old music room, as if observing his back, muttering in a low voice, "Finally, someone has followed it." The campus during the summer is still crazy when it is old. When Lin Hao returned to the dormitory with his bookcase, his brain is still thinking about the scene in the old music room. He threw the bag, took out the yellow song, looked over, and felt that this thing seemed to have some magic power, otherwise how could he suddenly become a master of piano? "Howsy, what are you fucking? Is it so dementia like my face? Is it still so bad that I am getting pregnant?" Lin Hao glanced at him, slapped the penis on the table, and grinned. "Brother Fat, tell you a big secret, I might be coming to it." "Dao? You are the only one? Stop teasing. Yesterday, I was chased by Zhang Outyan and ran away. Today, I was able to do it." Fat Cheney looked unbelievable, and the potato chips in his mouth were almost sprayed out. "Stop talking, come here, let me tell you a serious matter." Lin Hao pulled a chair, sat down with a fat man Chen, and then talked about what happened in the old music room today from the end, including the inexplicable music, and the sudden piano. Even Su Xiao had to ask him to join the music club. Fatty Chen's eyes were so straightened. After a while, he came over his mind and slapped his thighs suddenly. "Damn, Howsy, are you opening this? You don't need to learn the piano, you'll be so awesome when you just start it. No, you have to do this. Make a big deal? What's going on?" Lin Hao was stunned, and he was actually not sure. After all, he was still a novice in music. "Get up a team. Let's find a few people to show off your talent this day. Not only can you hit Zhang Outyan's face, but you can also make some achievements in the campus music festival." Fatty Chinyu said, more and more excited, and his eyes were almost lit up. "At that time, all the girls in the school will have to scream and call your name. Zhang Outyan can only stare at the side." Lin Hao felt aroused in his heart, and a picture of Zhang Outyan being pressed tightly in his brain appeared in his brain. He couldn't help but laugh. "Okay, then do you think, who are we looking for?" "Just us, there are not even a drummer, how can we organize it?" "This is my fault. I know a few guys. Although I don't have any musical instruments, I'm so popular. Let's write them together first." Fatty Chin patted his chest and then hurried closer. "But Howsy, what's going on with that Sue? Did she really invite you to the music club? That's a goddess-level figure, and I don't look at people in the face." Lin Hao slapped his head and felt a little embarrassed. "She just said it casually, and thought I could take it as a coolie." I didn't answer. After all, the music club was Zhang Outyan's earthen market. Why didn't I go and look for abuse? "Hey, what's the timid? With Su Xiao just covering you, how dare Zhang Outyan move you? I think you just don't dare to talk to the goddess, for fear of showing timidity." Fatty Chinny smiled with a slight smile, and his eyebrows were sucking. "Puff the egg, please don't use me." Lin Hao kicked him a little angry, but he was actually a little excited. Su Xiao's cold eyes, and her seriousness when she said, "It shouldn't be buried." He was really impressed by him. But now things are going to be tight, so the grouping has to be tightened. Fatty Chin was very efficient. The next day, he brought in a few acquaintances and said he was willing to join. When he saw that he was all unreliable, he saw that he didn't know anything about the rhythm. Some of them claimed to be guitar. As a result, he ran to Grandma's house after the sound was flashed. "Brother Fat, who are you looking for here? We are a team of music, not a joke." Lin Hao looked at the helping person, and the black lines were almost on his brain. "Don't be anxious, don't be anxious. Let's work together to practice first. You can't count on you alone, right?" Fatty Chin laughed and tried to round up the scene. Just as he was about to go, the dormitory door was suddenly pushed open. Sue was almost wearing a simple sports outfit and was holding a notebook in his hand. She glanced at the helper in the room, and her eyebrows were slightly raised. "Lin Hao, what are you fucking?" Lin Hao's heart skipped a beat and he quickly stood up to explain, "It's nothing, it's just. I just want to have a fun team and have fun." Su Xiao snorted coldly, his eyes swept over the unreliable teammates and his lingerie was filled with some disgust. "Just these few people? Are you sure you are not playing around?" Fatty Chen Buell became more and slammed his brain and said, "Sister Xiao, you can't say this. We are a grassroots team, and we focus on participating." Su Xiao ignored him and looked directly at Lin Hao. "If you really want to play a music team, I can join, but I have the conditions. I want to be the lead singer, and there are also people in the team that need to have real skills, and these people can't do it." Lin Hao was stunned. Unexpectedly, Su would take the initiative to join, and he was surprised and happy. "You really want to come? That's great. But, what are these guys? Let them take the logistics first, run errands and promotions, and then talk about it after practicing." Su Xiao's language was unquestionable, and then flipped out the notebook in his hand. "I have a few songs here, and see if there are any that can be used. We must have our own songs, otherwise we will go and slap people when participating in the campus music festival." Lin Hao took the notebook and saw that there were dense notes and lyrics in it, and he wrote them in a regular manner. Although he didn't understand it very well, he could feel that Su had put a lot of thought into it. In this way, the team's confusion has been decided. Lin Hao is responsible for the creation and keyboard, Su is the lead singer, and Fatty Chen is responsible for logistics and sponsorship. They found a waste warehouse near the replenishment class as a training room. Although the place was old, there was at least a place to cover the rain. However, a problem broke out on the first day of the training. Although Lin Hao is talented, he has not learned it properly and can never keep up with Su Xiao's rhythm. Su Xiao is a perfect ideology. If there are any flaws, he will turn his face coldly and let it come again, which makes Lin Hao feel extremely stressed. "Lin Hao, you've been slowing down in this place for a half beat. Can you be focused?" Su stopped, his language was full of impatientness. Lin Hao wiped his sweat and explained with a wry smile, "I've tried my best. After all, I haven't done this before. Why don't you give me some time?" Su was lying on his eyebrows, not saying anything, but his eyes were clearly not full. The fat man Chen Rui had a bad atmosphere, so he hurried over to fight the roundabout. "Sister Xiao Xiao, Haozi is a novice, come slowly, we are still half a month." "Half a month? The first choice for the campus music festival is next week. Do you think Zhang Outyan's chance to help us breathe?" Su said coldly, and the pen in his hand hit the table. "Their team has already taken shape, and the songs are all mature. If we don't catch them tightly, it will be a joke." Lin Hao heard Zhang Outyan's name and felt angry. He gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, I will practice tonight. I will guarantee that I will not drag my back." That night, he stayed up until midnight, and practiced the song that Su Xiao gave over and over again, and his fingers were almost rubbed out. The melody of the song in his brain appears from time to time, as if giving him a sense of innocence. During the training the next day, he finally followed the rhythm and even added a few melodies, which Su couldn't find any problem. "Okay, you've been a little bit long." Although Su Xiao's mouth was still cold, there was a little more approval in his eyes. However, the problem is not finished. Their equipment is really too broken. The keyboard sometimes blocks the keys, and the speakers always make noises, which greatly reduces the training effect. Fatty Chen Sang pulled some sponsorship, but he heard that it was a new Joy team, and he didn't even look at it. "Haozi, this won't work. If the equipment is not changed, it will be useless to practice." Fatty Chen was sweating profusely. Lin Hao was also worried. Equipment is not a trivial problem, but how could they get money to exchange? Just when his head was in pain, a noisy sound suddenly came from the replenishment class. Several people followed the sound and found that it was Zhang Outyan carrying his younger brother to show off his power at the playground, and he was carrying a bunch of new instruments in his hand. "Yeah, isn't this Lin Hao's helping waste? Why did you really set up a broken team? Even if you are such a broken thing, you dare to compete with me, Zhang Outyan?" Zhang Outyan laughed, and several younger brothers next to him followed him with a harsh smile. Lin Hao's fist was clenched tightly, and he wanted to punch him, but he still held it back and gritted his teeth and said, "Zhang Outyin, what's the use of saying it beautiful? I'll see the real chapter on the music festival if you have the ability." "See the real chapter? Just complain about you? Okay, I'll wait and see why you're going to let go." Zhang Outyin sneered and left with the man. This scene finally ignited the fire in Lin Hao's heart. He turned to Su Xiaoxiao and Fatty Chen. "We must make a song of our own and slap him on the face. If the equipment is not good, we will do it ourselves. I will write the song, and you will help me fill in the lyrics. Fatty brother, you are responsible for the publicity, how about it?" Su was about to point a little bit, and the fat man Chen also patted his chest to guarantee, "No problem, I will post this to me and I will guarantee that the whole school will be blown up." In the next few days, they almost didn't sleep much, and even the classes in the training class were over, and they created day and night in the warehouse. The melody in Lin Hao's brainstorms like a spring water. In conjunction with the lyrics written by Su Xiao, he made a song full of youth and rebellion, which made people feel hot and bloody. Finally, we arrived at the final small performance of the supplementary class, which was their first public performance. Although it was just a small party, many people in the school were very enthusiastic about watching it, and Zhang Outyin also sat in the audience with people, looking at them disdainfully. "Howsy, are you tight?" Fatty Chen Xiaoying asked, his palms sweating. "It's a big deal. Once this song is released, it will definitely be a blowout." Lin Hao was so angry, but he was actually unsure. Su Xiao walked over, patted his shoulder lightly, and said in a low voice, "Let go, don't think too much." When they came on stage, there was a lot of discussions in the audience, and many people were talking about private words, saying that they were a new group of broken music teams and there was no point in watching them. Lin Hao took a deep breath, his fingers fell on the keyboard, and there was only one thought in his brain: let these people close their mouths. As the first note echoed, the melody that had been practiced countless times in the warehouse finally exploded in front of the crowd. Su Xiao's voice was clear and powerful, like a knife stabbing the heart. The lyrics are filled with dissatisfaction with reality and desire for the future. Each sentence seems to be venting, instantly igniting the emotions of everyone in the audience. What song is this? Why is it so ignited? My God, where is this team from? It's more awesome than Zhang Outyin and the others. The audience's comments were getting louder and louder, and many people even stood up and swayed with the rhythm, screaming wave after wave. Lin Hao was ecstatic as he watched the reaction from the audience, and the melody under his fingers became more and more smooth, as if the whole person had been integrated into the music. Zhang Outyin sat in the audience, his face as dark as the bottom. The younger brother next to him wanted to say something, but when he saw his expression, he didn't dare to open his mouth. The song ended, and the whole scene was boiling, and the sound of palms and cries almost overturned the roof. Lin Hao gasped heavily and turned to look at Su Xiao, and both of them couldn't help laughing. Fatty Chen jumped up in excitement and shouted, "Did you see it? We are so awesome!" The reactions in the audience have not dissipated yet, and many people have begun to ask their team's name and whether there will be any next performance. Lin Hao knew in his heart that this was just the beginning, and the real challenge was still behind. Zhang Outyin would definitely not let it go. He lowered his head and looked at the music in his hand, his mouth slightly raised, and he secretly swore in his heart, "Next, we have to play bigger." After performing the class training class, Lin Hao and his team became a hot topic in the campus overnight. Whether it is the cafeteria or the dormitory, you can hear someone talking about their song that ignited the whole scene wherever you go. Even classmates who don't pay much attention to music come to ask them when they will perform again. Lin Hao felt happy in his heart, but he also knew that this small achievement was far away, and the real tough battle was still at the back. "Howsy, we are so proud of this." Zhang Outyin's face is green. Fatty Chen was gnawing on the chicken legs and slapped the table excitedly. The sound in the cafeteria was almost overwhelmed by him. Lin Hao glanced at him. Although he didn't say anything on his mouth, he felt very happy. He remembered Zhang Outyin's stinky face clearly. At that time when he was helping people in the audience, Zhang Outyan's expression seemed to have eaten a fuck, so don't get rid of it. Don't be too excited too early. The first choice of music festivals will come soon. Our equipment is still the pile of broken pieces. Zhang Outyan and the others will not give us a chance to breathe. Su was sitting next to him, rumbling down his head and flipping his phone. His language was cold, but it was obviously a bit more serious than before. Lin Hao clicked a little and understood this in his heart. Their keyboards and speakers may be damaged at any time, and the training effect is greatly reduced. In addition, there is still a lack of regular drummers and guitarists in the team, so he and Su Xiao can't even help a large-scale performance. Why don't we look for someone again? I heard that there is a guy in the next class who can play drums. Although he is not very sociable at ordinary times, his skills are still good. Fatty Chin wiped his mouth and tried to come up with an idea. Okay, you go and check it out. You can think of ways to do this in the equipment. Even if you borrow it, you have to borrow a set of similar things. Lin Hao gritted his teeth and decided not to delay it anymore. He had a premonition in his heart. That guy Zhang Outyan would definitely not let it go. He might be holding on to something bad about the next one. Sure enough, at noon the next day, the fat mansion ran back to the dormitory panting, his face full of anger. Howsy, it's bad. Zhang Outyan's son started to do tricks. What kind of small action? Tell me clearly. Lin Hao's heart skipped a beat when he heard this, and he tightly put down the joy in his hand. Fat Chin gasped for a few breaths and said hatefully, I just heard that Zhang Outyan was playing in the music club, saying that he would come with us for a hot competition before the first choice of music festivals to openly challenge us. He also said that if we lost, we had to disband the music team and apologize to him. Hot race? Apologize? Damn, he thought he was. Lin Hao heard the fire and rushed upwards, his fists clenched tightly. He wants to play, right? Then we will accompany him to the end. Su Xiao pushed the door in and heard this and said, Zhang Outyan is deliberately provoking us. When the first choice came out, he clearly wanted to fight for our performance. You should not be moved. Our focus is to practice the new songs well, and don't be led by him. Yes, I understand you, but Zhang Outyan has come to his face. Can we bear it? If you don't give him a look, he really thinks we're bullying. Lin Hao gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with dissatisfaction. Su was silent for a moment, and finally got a little bit, okay, but we must be sure of this challenge, and it will be over if we get it. I heard that Zhang Outyan recruited foreign players this time and found a Liz Hang who is a little famous in the city to help him, and he is very capable. When Lin Hao heard this, a sense of struggle arose in his heart. What about foreign aids? We have our own songs, and we are afraid they will be furious. Fatty, you go to arrange the challenge. Soon, we will go back to the old music room tonight and continue to make new songs. I don't believe that I can't make a song that can blow up the scene. That night, it was getting dark and the campus was so quiet that only the sound of the birds was left. Lin Hao, Su Xiao and Fatty Chen San went back to the old music room in the dark, pushed open the squeaking door, and a familiar musty smell came over the side. They lighted up the flashlight of their phones, and the light swayed in the broken room, making the atmosphere a little strange. Howsy, are you sure this place can give us a sense of spirit? How do I feel like the silhouette on my back? Fatty Chen hugged his arms, staring around, with a little bit of lingering in his voice. Stop talking. Although this place is broken, it was here that made melodies appear in my brain last time. I might be able to come to order tonight. Lin Hao rolled his eyes and sat in front of the gray piano, knocking on the piano key with his fingers, making a low sound. Su didn't say anything, so he silently took out his cell phone and began to record the notes that Lin Hao used to pop up. Her expression was so serious that she would stop occasionally and asked Lin Hao in a low voice, "What do you think of this period? Can you add some changes?" Lin Hao closed his eyes, his fingers jumped on the piano key, and the shadow of the mysterious music appeared in his brain. Those notes seemed to be alive, constantly reorganizing in his brain, slowly forming a new melody. The storm this time was more intense than last time, like a storm, full of pressure and explosiveness. "Xiao, you hear this?" Lin Hao suddenly opened his eyes, his fingers speeded up, and the sound of the piano became rapid and hot and bloody, and it was like a war drum hitting people's hearts. Su's eyes lit up as soon as he heard it, and he quickly lowered his head and muttered in a low voice, "This feeling, yes, that's the power. If I come, our song is called The Storm, which directly makes Zhang Outyan and the others unable to turn over." Fatty Chen heard the sound of blood boiling beside him, and couldn't help but yell, "Damn, Haozi, you are so awesome. As soon as this song is released, who dares to challenge us?" Just as the three of them were getting more and more agitated, a light squeak sound suddenly came from the corner of the old music room, as if something had been touched. The fat mansion shivered in surprise, and the flashlight fell directly to the ground. What sound? Isn't this place really a ghost?" Lin Hao was also stunned for a moment, but quickly calmed down, picked up his phone and looked at it in the corner. "Don't scare yourself. It's probably a mouse or something. You'll know if you go over and take a look." Su was quite calm and walked over with Lin Hao. The three of them looked closer and found that there was an old wooden cabinet in the corner, and the sound just seemed to be transmitted from it. Lin Hao gritted his teeth and reached out to pull the cabinet. In addition to a pile of dust, there was also a small iron box with a scattered surface and looked a little old. "What's this?" Fatty Chen stole the head, curiously lifted the iron box, and with a swipe, a crisp sound came out of it. "Open and take a look, maybe it's a treasure." Lin Hao took the box and gave a little effort to pry it open. There were some yellow photos and a letter inside. The photo shows a young man holding a guitar in his hand, standing on the stage, with the background like an old campus. He looked confident and a sad and ruthless scoundrel in his smile. Su Xiao picked up the letter, spread it lightly, and recited it in a low voice. "I am Li Feng, this music room is the starting point of my dreams. That year, I wrote the first song here, vowing to let the whole world hear my voice. If you see this letter, it means that you have also heard the music call. Don't be afraid, chase it bravely, the stage belonging to you is right in front of you." After reading this paragraph, the three of them were silent. Fatty Chen swallowed and said in a short voice, "Li Feng. Why does this name sound so familiar? Wait, isn't this the legendary singer? It was redished all over the country more than 10 years ago, and then suddenly retreated." Lin Hao was shocked and his brain instantly linked the ropes. The old music room said that Li Feng's name, and that mysterious music, everything is right. This place is really the starting point of Li Feng, and the joy he got is probably the thing he left behind. So that's the case. There is indeed a secret hidden here. Lin Hao clenched his fists, his eyes full of excitement. "We can do it if Li Feng can go from here to the whole country. This storm comes as our first step." Su had just clicked a little, and there was a little more determination in his eyes. "Then don't waste time, practice, let's take over Zhang Outyan's challenge, and tell him with this song, who is the real king." In the next few days, the entire team members seemed to have been hit by chicken blood and kept performing new songs day and night. The drummer that Fatty Chen Hao finally joined. Although his personality was a bit withdrawn, his skills were too strong and he quickly followed the rhythm. However, the training process was not smooth, and Lin Hao and Su Xiao had a conflict because of the disagreement of opinions on a small section. "Lin Hao, this paragraph must be slowed down, otherwise you can't keep up with it when singing. Why don't you listen?" Su Xiao quickly snatched his eyebrows and knocked on the table with the pen in his hand. "If you slow down, you will lose the impact. This song is about to be fast and explode. If you slow down, why is it called The Storm Comes?" Lin Hao didn't let it go, his language was full of stubbornness. Seeing that the two of them became more and more fierce as they quarreled, the fat man Chen and the drummer didn't know how to fight, so they could only stare at him. Finally, Su fell off his pen with a cold face and turned around and walked out. "Okay, you can do whatever you want, I don't care." Lin Hao looked at her back and felt very uncomfortable. He knew that Su Xiao was good for the team, but he didn't want to make up for it. As a result, this song was the crystallization of his hard work. That night, he was alone in the warehouse, listening to the recording and thinking back, and his brains were full of Su's bulging. "Forget it, I can't let her get angry. We are a team, and there must be someone to lower their heads. Lin Hao gritted his teeth, picked up his phone and sent Su Xiao a message. "It's right, I'm just wrong. Let's discuss that part again, I'm willing to change it." Unexpectedly, not long after the news came out, Su came back, holding a bottle of water in his hand and threw it to him. "I don't have to argue with you, I just want to make the song better. I understand your thoughts. Let's take a break from it, how about it?" Lin Hao was stunned and took the water. He couldn't help laughing. "Okay, if you hear you, you'll get the best." This small conflict was resolved in this way. The two of them sat together again and adjusted the song, and their cooperation became more tacit than before. Fat Chen looked straight and said, "Hey, Haozi, Xiao Xiao sister, this is the team. Remember to make up early if you quarrel in the future, don't let me and the drummer dry the lights." The day of challenge finally arrived, and the playground was filled with people early. Zhang Outyan stood by his music club members, one dressed in a fancy manner and the equipment was even more dazzling. Zhang Outyan looked at Lin Hao and the others, and sneered at the corner of his mouth. "Yeah, Lin Hao, dare you come? I thought you had already run away." "Run? Zhang Outyan, this is the only thing you think in your brain? Today we will let you know what it means to crush forcefully." Lin Hao was not showing any weakness, his eyes were full of scoundrels. The challenge rules are very simple, with the two teams performing a song, and the audience voted to decide the outcome. Zhang Outyan and the others came on the stage first and brought a popular adaptation. Although it was not surprising, they were still very happy, and with the blessing of equipment, the audience still heard a lot of sounds. Did you see it? This is the gap between professionals and professionals. It's time for you, don't pee your pussy. Zhang Outyan got out of the stage and hooked his fingers with a tick. Lin Hao sneered, ignored him and took his teammates to the stage. Although the equipment is still the pile of broken pieces, their enthusiasm is not enough. With the first drum beat, the melody of the storm exploded instantly, and Su Xiao's sound was as sharp as a sharp blade. Lin Hao's keyboard was even more crazy, and every note seemed to be a war. The crowd in the audience was ignited in an instant, and the screams and cries were rising and falling. Some people even stood up and danced to the rhythm. The atmosphere was so hot that it seemed to explode. Zhang Outyan's younger brothers looked at this scene, their faces becoming more and more difficult to see. Zhang Outyan himself stared at Lin Hao on the stage, his fists were white. The song ended, and the whole scene was almost boiling, and the voting results were unexpected. Lin Hao and the others crushed the other party with their inverted strength. Someone shouted in the audience, "Lin Hao is awesome. This song is so igniting." Many people rushed to the front of the stage, wanting to take a photo with them. Zhang Outyan, why? Do you dare to come to another scene? Lin Hao got off the stage and deliberately walked to Zhang Outyan, smiling terrified without any jealousy. Zhang Outyan gritted his teeth, but said nothing, and turned around and left in disgrace. Fat Chen was watching from behind and yelled at their backs, "Hey, don't run away, the hot game is not over yet." The victory of this challenge made Lin Hao and the others' talents prosper, but they all knew that this was just a little trial, and the real campus music festival was still at the back. After eating this time, Zhang Outyan will definitely not be able to stop being ruthless. Next, maybe there will be some big moves waiting for them. Lin Hao looked down at the music in his hand, and a photo of Li Feng appeared in his brain, and secretly swore in his heart, "No matter what is difficult, we must go through it. It belongs to our stage and cannot be given to anyone." The days of campus music festivals finally arrived. The campus was as hot as the new year. A huge stage was set up on the playground, with colorful flags flying, and the low sound of the audio equipment made the air vibrate. The students gathered together early, discussing tonight's performance in groups of 3 or 5. Zhang Outyan's name was mentioned. After all, his team Uranus had long been famous on campus, and the fan group alone occupied half of the audience. Lin Hao stood in the backstage, looking at the crowds of people under the audience through the gaps in the curtain, saying that it was fake to be unhinged. Although their team Stormblade showed off their skills in the challenge, it was still far behind Zhang Outyan, which had background and resources. Their equipment is still the pile of broken pieces, the keyboard buttons occasionally get stuck, and the speakers are constantly rumbling. The only thing they can do is the few original songs that they worked hard to practice during this period. Howsy, why are you? Are you cowardly? There are so many people in the audience, so we can't fall off the chain. Fatty Chinibing adjusted the McGraphic style he borrowed at the moment, and Lin Hao was shaking his eyebrows. Although he was talking, his palms were covered in sweat. What are you afraid of? You're here, let's do a big deal. Isn't Zhang Outyin awesome? Let him know what real power is today. Lin Hao's mouth was hard and his hands subconsciously clasped the Zhang Old Leo. The paper that came from the old music room seemed to give him endless energy. Every time he touched it, the melody in his brain stormed out like a spring water. Su Xiao stood beside him, lowered his head and stumbled his ears. He heard Lin Hao's words, raised his eyes and glanced at him, and pulled the corners of his mouth slightly. Don't just say a big talk. When I go on stage, don't shake hands. I don't want to be dismissed with a novice. Hey, yes, your mouth is still so poisonous. Don't worry, we have practiced these songs hundreds of times, and we can even pop up when we close our eyes. Lin Hao grinned, and a desire to ignite the words in his heart. He knew that although Su was not apologetic, she was more serious than anyone in the training session during this period, and she didn't even shout a tiring sound. Afar, Zhang Outyin walked over with his Uranus team. Several people were wearing uniform black leather clips, with guitars and drum sets flashing with new shiny clothes. The equipment was obviously top-notch. Zhang Outyin glanced at Lin Hao and the others, and sneered at the corner of his mouth. Lin Hao, you were very excited in the challenge that time. You can't play this stage today. Don't cry when you're over, haha. Zhang Outyin, don't say anything, the real chapter on the stage. Don't be too difficult to watch, even your little fangirl from the stage has run away. Lin Hao replied without showing any weakness, his eyes full of picking. Zhang Outyin hummed, and without saying anything, he turned around and walked towards the other preparation area. His little brothers said in a low voice, and occasionally glanced at Lin Hao, with disdain in his eyes. With the host's passionate opening, the music festival officially kicked off. The first one to appear was the Uranus team. As soon as they appeared, they caused screams from the audience. Zhang Outyin held a microphone and interacted with the audience with a few sentences in a model. Then a popular adapted slam song exploded, and the atmosphere on the scene was instantly ignited. I have to say that their performance is indeed professional, combined with the flow, and the sound effects are particularly shocking due to the blessing of top-level equipment. The sounds and shouts in the audience were wave after wave. When Zhang Outyin got out of the stage, he deliberately threw a proud look at Lin Hao, and his mouth clearly said, "You are finished." Damn, this guy really has two chances, and the equipment is so good that we can compare to each other, Fatty Chin swallowed, muttering in a small voice, full of worry. What are we comparing? We have our own things. No matter how good they are just imitating. Our songs are original, do you understand? Lin Hao gritted his teeth and patted the fat man Chen on the shoulder. Then he turned his head to look at Su Xiaoxiao and Shaoli, the drummer who just joined. Brothers, don't think about anything when they come on stage. Just one goal: bombing. Let them know who is the protagonist of this stage. Su had just clicked a little, his eyes fixed. Okay, let's go, our storm comes will definitely not be anyone. When the storm blade came on stage, the audience's comments were much smaller. Although their performance in the challenge was astonishing, many people still felt that they were just a waste of time, with broken equipment and poor teams. How could they compare with Uranus? There were even a few fans of Zhang Outyin who shouted directly from the audience, "Go down, don't let go." Lin Hao heard these sounds and his heart was filled with fire, but he didn't say a word, but just took a deep breath and winked the teammates. With Shaoli's first drum beat, the prelude to the storm exploded instantly, and Lin Hao's fingers jumped at a speed on the keyboard. The familiar melody was like a heavy punch, hitting everyone's heart in the audience. Su Xiaoxiao's voice was added later, clear and powerful, and every lyric seemed to be venting, full of youthful rebellion and desire for the future. What song is this? Why is it so ignited? My God, isn't this the team that challenged the game? How could they write this song? The discussions in the audience grew louder and louder. The crowd that was already sarcastic was instantly ignited. Some people began to clap their hands with the rhythm, and some even stood up and screamed. The atmosphere was bursting. Lin Hao looked at the reaction from the audience and felt ecstatic. The melody under his fingers became more and more smooth, as if the whole person had been integrated into the music. Su Xiao's voice became more and more exciting. When he reached the climax, almost all of the audience sang choruses, and the sound was shocking. Zhang Outyin stood on the side of the stage, his face as dark as the bottom. He clenched his fists tightly. The younger brother next to him wanted to say something, but when he saw his expression, he didn't dare to open his mouth. The song ended, and the sound of the palms and cries in the audience almost overturned the sky. Someone shouted, "The Blade of Storm is awesome." Many people rushed to the stage and recorded the image crazy on their mobile phones. Lin Hao gasped heavily and turned to look at Su Xiao. Both of them couldn't help laughing. Fatty Chen jumped up in excitement and shouted, "Did you see it? We won. Zhang Outyin is nothing." However, the competition was not over yet, and the second round performance began. Zhang Outyin and the others changed a more explosive song to try to save the situation, but the emotions of the audience were clearly deviated by the Blade of Storm. Many people began to speak privately and discuss Lin Hao and the others' songs. When the second song of Blade of Storm started, the scene exploded directly. The melody of this song was even more gripping, and the lyrics hit people's hearts and talked about the hope of rising from a low point. Many people in the audience heard it read and their eyes were almost gone. The final voting result was unconcerned. Blade of Storm won the music championship with its inverted strength. When the host announced the results, the screams from the audience almost swept the microphone. Lin Hao and his teammates stood on the stage and received the prize cup. He had only one thought in his heart: I finally got Zhang Outyin over. Zhang Outyin stood in the audience, his face turned blue, gritted his teeth and refused to say a word, and turned away. His little brothers followed behind in shame, not even daring to raise their heads. The fans in the audience were also stunned. The people who were just praising Uranus are now turning around and starting to say Stormblade, and many people even came to Lin Hao and others to sign. "Howsy, we're so popular. Look, the girl in the audience is almost stuck to your body." Fatty Chen grinned, holding her mobile phone in her hand and taking pictures, feeling so happy that she couldn't hold her mouth. "What a hot thing. Let's go down first. I'll have to clean up the equipment later." Lin Hao said this, but he had already had flowers in his heart. He glanced at Su Xiao next to him and found that she was looking down at the prize cup, with a slight smile hanging from the corner of her mouth, and a little red face. "Yeah, I sang so well today. If it weren't for you, our climax part wouldn't have been able to explode the scene." Lin Hao walked over and tried to find the topic, with a few praises in his language. Su Xiao looked up at him and snorted, "Stop slapping the fart, your keyboard is not dragging your back legs, you are of some use. Hey, why don't you exaggerate you? Let's go and have a midnight snack together. You must have a fun banquet." Lin Hao snatched his head, smiling a little silly, but there was a little bit of unclear meaning in his eyes. Su didn't say anything, but just clicked a little. His eyes were a little softer than usual. The two of them interacted a little, and Chen Quan, the fat man beside him, looked in his eyes and rushed over with a hoarse, "Howsy, Xiao sister, when is it going on? Why don't you tell your brothers a sound?" "Boom, don't say anything nonsense." Lin Hao kicked him in a bad mood, his face was red. Su Xiao snorted coldly and turned his head to pretend to pack up things, but his ears were also quietly red. A few days after the music festival, the name Stormblade suddenly exploded in the campus. Not only were the students in the school discussing their songs, and even the people from several schools next door heard this. What's even more exaggerated is that the videos of the performance that day were transmitted to the internet, and the clicks exceeded 100,000 overnight. The storm and the light of the breaking became popular lyrics, and the comments were all messages of "this team is too ignited" and "please download the original song." "Howsy, look at this comment, netizens are almost blowing us to the sky." An entertainment company also contacted me and said that I wanted to sign us. What do you think? Fatchin held his cell phone, his face full of excitement, and his fingers kept sliding on the screen. Agreement? You have to consider this matter slowly. We are still students now, so don't make a decision. However, it's really good to be recognized by others. Lin Hao leaned against the bed in the dormitory. Although he was calm, his heart was already very excited. From a loser who was bullied by Zhang Outyan to now becoming the focus of hot discussions in the whole school and even the whole country, this feeling of reverse is simple and not too pleasant. A few days later, when Zhang Outyan met Lin Hao on the campus, his face was still smelly, but he didn't pick it anymore, but just said coldly, "Lin Hao, you are cruel, I think this time. But don't be too proud too early, the road ahead will be long. I'll be with you anytime, Zhang Outyan, remember, don't underestimate anyone." Lin Hao glanced at him, his words were calm and full of confidence. Zhang Outyan hummed and turned away, his back full of unwillingness. At the evening, Lin Hao returned to the old music room alone, holding the old musical song in his hand, and quietly sat in front of the piano. The rest of the sun came in through the broken window, and a calm breath filled the air. He looked down at the music, and a photo of Li Feng appeared in his brain, and said silently in his heart, "Foreign, thank you for your gift. I will continue to walk with your will, so that more people can hear our voices." At this moment, a sound of footsteps came from the door. Su immediately walked in, holding a bottle of water in his hand, and threw it to him. "What are you doing? Is anyone stupid? Can't you go to the banquet for me?" Lin Hao picked up the water and grinned. "Go, why don't you? I just come back and see, this place is our starting point. Soon, what are your plans next? Our team is really popular." Su Xiao sat next to him, silent for a while, with a look of longing in his eyes. "It's so unbelievable or not? I just want to give our singing to more people. Lin Hao, let's work together to bring the Storm Blade to a bigger stage, how about it? It's necessary. We must go together, not only the campus, but also the whole country, and even the whole world." Lin Hao clamped his fists tightly, his eyes full of struggle. Under the sunset, two figures in the old music room were approaching very close, and the air was filled with the blood of youth and the hope of the future. Lin Hao knew that all this was just the beginning, and the legend of Storm Blade just kicked off.